Hello there. I'm Brad Loomis, professional natural bodybuilder and master powerlifter. I'm a contest prep coach for powerlifters and cosmetic athletes with 3D Muscle Journey. I'm also sponsored by AST Sports Science and proud to represent their brand. However, that's not all that I am. I'm also a devoted family man, a CAT scan tech, and a devout Catholic. A life like mine is not at all glamorous, at least not as some would lead you to believe. Don't get me wrong, there are some high points, but it's mostly just a lot of hard work. And it's quite boring, especially for a guy like me, with below average genetics for bodybuilding and only putting up average to maybe above average numbers in powerlifting. However, that didn't really matter to me. I love my life as a family man, and I love my life as a coach. And this is my grind. Okay, 3D MJers, so getting back to our Q&A that we were doing, where I'm actually answering the questions that are right here on my videos. I'm going to cover episodes 9 and 11. The last time that I did a Q&A, if you guys recall correctly, I actually had trouble getting the comments off of episode 9, and so we covered 8 and 10 on that one. So we're going to go ahead and hit 9 on this one this time around. This is where I do my ascending warm-up sets, getting ready for my training. So basically at this point I've already done my movement prep, which I outlined I think in episode 1 of my grind, and I'm starting to actually do my ascending sets, working up to the weight that I'm going to be using for that day. So going over the questions that are right here on the actual episode itself, episode 9. Mr. 93 Suki says, I'd love to do barbell rows as main lift on pull day and squat any oni leg day. I also add DL on my legs day as a second exercise. How should I warm up for DL? Now, deadlift, that is a big compound lift, and I will sometimes do that as well. I'll do my squats and then I'll go ahead and do my deadlifts. And really, to be honest with you, it's not quite as extensive, the ascending sets, the build up, but it's still there. So, you know, say for example that I'm using a pretty heavy load, say, you know, just for example's sake, we'll say anything greater than 80% of my 1 rep max. I'm probably going to start at least 50, you know, maybe even like 40% of my 1 rep max for multiple repetitions, and then build from there. I might make bigger jumps. You know, I might start with 40%, you know, do that for a set of 8, make a nice big jump to say 60%, you know, do that for 3 or 4, maybe jump to 70-ish percent, do that for like 3 or however many reps that I've got planned to do for my working sets. And then again, just like I did on that episode, what I might do is I might go ahead and say that I'm going to do sets of 5. Okay, I might go ahead and just do 1 repetition at the load that I'm going to be actually working with to acclimate, and then if I need to, I can call an audible and count that repetition toward my volume for that day. So say that I've got, you know, 3 sets of 5 on the docket. Essentially I've got 1 out of the way, and if I'm really fatigued, you know, I could go 2 sets of 5 and a set of 4 to get the total volume that Eric has got prescribed for me. On that particular day, I was feeling really good, and I went ahead and just did, you know, my 3 sets of 5 or 3 sets of 3 or whatever it was, and just kind of excluded that warm-up repetition. But that's an option that you do have, and I treat it very much the same way that I do, since it is a big compound lift. Now, to expand on that and possibly answer the question that you might not be asking, you know, how do I approach my ascending sets on all of my other work? Well, to be honest with you, on a typical day like that where I might do squat and then deadlift, and I've got a bunch of accessory work, I will probably not do any ascending sets on the accessory work. I might just go right to it. So for me, for example, I'll usually go right over to the calf machine, use the load that I'm, you know, wanting to use, and do my sets of 10 or sets of 12 or whatever. Go right to my weighted hyperextensions, don't even worry about ascending sets on that secondary work. Just, you know, basically get right to it. Now people don't like my intro anymore. In earlier episodes, everything was good. The intro was good. Loved the intro, very motivating. And now it's I thought shorten up the intro. how times can change. Okay, do you think that your knees go too far ahead of your feet while front squatting? Looks unhealthy. And there's some really good comments here for those of you who might want to go to this particular video. One person talks about, you know, forward knee travel and the angle of the torso, etc. And I went over a video, I believe it was in 2-minute tips playlist on our YouTube channel. But yeah, you know, keep in mind that there's nothing wrong with the knees going past the toes to a certain extent. And in fact, I was very much of the same mindset many years ago when I was a personal trainer, is that that's a bad thing. You don't want that ever to happen. But really what's truly important is that where is the majority of the load being placed? If your knees are going over your toes, but yet the bar is over, you know, the center of your femur and maybe more so toward your back, that's where the load is right there on that stronger hip joint and not right there on the knees. And then secondly, you know, it's kind of, keep in mind too how you break too. If you're doing a true 1 rep max, you may not want to do an Olympic style squat where you break at the knees first. Because a lot of times with Olympic lifters, they're not doing true 1 rep maxes. They're using submaximal loads because obviously they're not going to take their true squat and jerk it over their head. So yeah, a lot of times when you're doing a true 1 rep max, as long as you're not breaking at the knees and you're breaking at the hips first and loading the hips, you're probably okay to keep a little bit of more knee travel over the toes, you know, as long as the majority of the load is placed on the hips. Also keep in mind that, you know, what the knees do laterally from side to side is very important too. If the majority of your knee is traveling laterally, you know, in order to get the pelvis kind of swung down between the hips, then, you know, there's less load placed on the knee as well. And so you can account for a little bit more travel over the knees there. So let's go ahead and get to other questions here. Again, great comments there if you guys wanted to look at that. I say use lifting shoes, belts, and straps. Do you need to use them? Is it one of those things that you should go after to reach your certain strength level? Are your numbers a lot different without it at all? Great video. Thanks. There's a good comment here. It says, you know, I'm not Brad, but in my opinion, they are definitely optional. And really, let's first of all get to me and how I use them. I use them because they are allowed in powerlifting. And when you're talking about, you know, sport specificity, if I'm going to compete in powerlifting, then I'm going to want to try to make my lifts as specific to what it is that I'm going to be doing on competition day as I can, right? And if I'm allowed to use a belt, knee sleeves, Olympic shoes, wrist wraps, not straps, but wraps on competition day, I'm going to want to train like that as well. Just like the way that I perform my bench press. If I'm required to pause on my chest for my bench press, I pretty much train that way as well. So it's specific to my sport. Now, if I'm doing a block of training that says a year out from a competition, then I may not be as specific, but I'm still going to probably try to keep circumstances, you know, as much as I can still the same. Do my numbers change a lot? Yes, they do. I cannot deadlift as heavy without my weightlifting belt as I can with it. And a lot of that just has to do with more so the stability and the resistance that's placed on your core. Core being the true core, not the abs. But the core, the pelvic floor muscles, the psoas muscles, etc. With a little bit of resistance there's a lot more support, and I can use those muscles more effectively. And so therefore, obviously I can't lift as heavy nor squat as heavy without my weightlifting belt. And it's about probably, you know, I would guess I'm about 20% less on those lifts. So that's all the questions on that particular video, outside of just some you know, good old-fashioned ribbing about, you know, the quality of my videos and the intro. So let's go ahead and get to episode 11, a day of eating, where the goal of the day is, you know, in relationship to training. So getting to the questions here, again, a little bit more ribbing, a little bit more screwing with me. Opinion on veganism. Okay, we actually have a stand on veganism because, as some of you may or may not know, our director of research, Eric, is and I'm not sure what is a vegan and what is a vegetarian. I'm not sure of exactly of the two classifications, but you know, Eric basically, he'll eat salmon, he'll eat fish, he'll eat eggs, he'll eat dairy, but he doesn't eat meat. It's a personal choice. We respect that. Just like we respect anybody that chooses to make that choice. So when you look at the science, you know, when you're a vegan, you're lacking certain things, and we've got a list of I want to say 7 or 8 items that you're lacking, and I have to refer to it whenever I have a vegan on my roster. But you're basically lacking things like, if I recall correctly, I want to say iron, creatine. It seemed like there was a couple of different vitamins that were lacking, and so basically you want to supplement with those things that you're lacking from a vegan diet. And I will see if I can't find some of the sources that Eric actually cites, and then throw those up in the comments section of this video. But there's nothing wrong with veganism. I mean, it all comes down to what are your macronutrient quantities for the goal that you're after, whether it be maintenance, weight gain, weight loss, etc. There's certainly nothing wrong with it. You just want to make sure that you're smart about your approach. Last year you mentioned you'd like to consume 250 grams of protein a day. Has that changed? Yes, it has. If I was your coach, I'd reduce your intake, of processed packaged foods. So yeah, I've been drooling over this question. So Chris, basically, yes, it has changed, and basically it's just come down to economics. Look at the price of dairy right now. I love to consume a lot of dairy, specifically Greek yogurt. And the price of dairy has gone through the roof. Meat has actually gone through the roof. And so I've basically had to rob Peter to pay Paul, just because I simply can't afford to incorporate that much dairy and meat into my diet. And while I do get, you know, a good quantity of protein powder supplied to me, I don't like drinking my calories. There's not enough food volume to protein powder. So I just basically kind of allocated things a little bit different and moved some of those calories from protein over to carbohydrate, simply for economic reasons. Now, if I was your coach, I'd reduce your intake of processed packaged foods. And I touched on this in the last episode, Chris. Are you saying that because you want to be right, or are you saying that because you're thinking of your client first and foremost? And here's the reason why. Like I just mentioned, it all comes down to macronutrients, what we need to get the goal going. So, again, you know, I realize that you don't know anything about me. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here. But let's say that your client can't cook. Let's say that they are a college student, and they only have a fridge, a freezer, and a microwave available to them. And I want them to get their vegetables in, and I want them to get their macros in, but yet I don't want them to use any processed foods. Well, essentially what we've done there, we've taken the one tool that client has to reach their goal away from them, okay? And so, you know, my big question to you in retort is why? Why would you reduce my amount of processed packaged foods that I have? You know, again, is it because you want to be right, or is it because you truly are doing what's right for your client? Because you can't simply tell a person, well, there's no way you're going to get shredded and reach your goals on processed foods. We've proven time and time again, anecdotally, that is possible, and you're just downright lying to your client by saying that. So that's an important point that I wanted to make sure, and the reason why I was really drooling over that question. Next one. Oh, that was in reference to my, boy, was I wrong. That was probably in reference to my miscalculation of the serving size of my Starbucks refresher. All right, guys, that's it on episodes 9 and 11. It looks like people are enjoying this, so I'm going to continue to throw these up periodically. And, yeah, if I see questions even on these videos that I'm making, give me some time, obviously. Be patient with me, but I'll make sure and try to get to those as well. So until next time, thanks a lot, you guys.